Hi everyone, I'm Melissa and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, hello. If you're oldie, sup. And in today's video, I'm just going to be giving you a few tips on how to learn a language because I'm currently doing like German intensive courses, and these are just the things that I've been doing that have been really helpful, and that's coming from a lot because German is hard. Yeah. And so I figured since these tips are doing so well for me, why not be generous and share, you know? It's almost Christmas, the giving season. Okay, so I have 5 tips, okay? These are like my top go-to, let's do this study hard tips. I need that. Okay, so the first thing that I would recommend you do when you're studying any language is color coordinated notes. And by this I mean, for example, in your notebook you might choose to have translated words written in green, important vocabulary like notes, or important vocabulary things to write them in red, for example. And another thing is that, for example, like I'll keep referring to German because that's what I'm learning, but it works for any other language. Sentence structure is very important in different languages because that's kind of what makes it what the language is. So anyway, color coding notes, like your sentences, is actually very clever and very important because, for example, I wrote this down. In a sentence, you might possibly have like a subject, a verb, a preposition, etc. And with different languages, the position of those different vocabulary terms are put in different places, okay? And sometimes it's hard to know exactly where when it's just words. But for example, if when you're learning sentence structure and you write your subject in red or your verbs in green, your prepositions in yellow, etc., that way you can see the different sentence structure, if it's just a normal sentence, if it's a negative sentence, if it's a question, for example, and that way just seeing the different colors moving around in depending on what you're saying could really help you be able to, like, in the future, just remember, wait, when I was asking a question, the green one was the first one. Ah, yeah. Thank me later. Okay, so that's the first one. The second tip is having a separate book for all your verbs. Now, this might not be the same in other languages. I wouldn't know because I'm only learning German right now. But for example, in German, there are a lot of verbs that need to be conjugated in different ways. What do I mean by conjugating? This is basically when the word structure changes depending on what the subject is. So for example, if I'm talking about me, let's say I have. Let's use the verb to have. If I want to say I have, then the word for have, speaking about myself, is different. If I want to say you have, the way I say have is different. If I want to say he, she, or it have, that word is different. If I want to say we have, that word is different. So depending on what the subject is, either I, you, he, she, it, we, they, or you, polite, that sentence structure, that word is completely different. And it might not be that hard, like that easy to memorize. And so this is my little red book, and it's just basically where I have my words and how it's written. Don't judge my handwriting. But this is actually very useful, and also for, like, I use it for my verbs and having other separate important things like the days of the week, months, etc. And I think this is very important so that you don't have one notebook that has everything. You know, you don't want to have too much information in one source. So for example, let's say you say, today I'm going to study my verbs. You don't want to have to flip through your book looking for the color coordinated purple that has your verb, when you can just have a separate book that's everything is in order and it doesn't really have to confuse you that much. So yeah, that's my second tip. Have a separate book for all your verbs, and all the other important things that you basically need to memorize. Okay, now my third tip is actually just doing tests on your own. So by this I mean not just tests but practicing as well. For example, what I do is, even though I'm not finished with my A1, I'll still go online and do online A1 test, just so I can have a bit more pressure for me to really remember what I've learned and see how far in A1 I've gotten. So for example, before I knew German, I did an A1 test. I don't know why. And surprise, surprise, I failed that. But now that I'm learning a bit more, I go back to the same test and I'm like, wait, I know this, type of thing. And it also not only helps with having you to keep repeating something to remember, but seeing yourself starting to learn something and remembering and actually passing it the second time once you've learned it is actually a very nice boost of confidence for like the whole language learning journey. And when I say these tests or exercises, I don't just mean like the full A1. For example, we'll take sentence structure. I actually did this today in the morning. I just like online German sentence structure exercises, and I did some online verb conjugation exercise test, whatever you're studying, there will be an online test to help you do that, so that you don't just have to feel like studying is just basically sitting, opening, reading, and then closing, and then that's it. Like, you've read it, good for you. You've memorized it, good for you. But can you actually apply it in like a real situation, in an actual sentence, an actual conversation, reading a text and answering questions about it? Can you do that? That's when these online things come in handy. And your homework. Okay, and then my fourth tip, we're almost at the end. My fourth tip would be actually speak the language you're learning. I don't mean just like in class when your teacher asks you to contribute, do that as well, but I also mean in real life situations. For example, for my German classes, I used to do them in the city before I decided to switch to online because of, the pandemic and everything, cases are rising and whatever. But when I used to go to the campus to do my lessons, to buy, like in the morning, I pass by the train station, and when I buy my coffee or my croissants or whatever I'm having for breakfast, I would try to order it in German, or even just say thank you, or I have a good day, or how much is that in German, even though I might be butchering the pronunciation. That was a definite. But just the fact that I started with little sentences, little hi, thank you in German, I have that in German, like small sentences that when the person replied back to me, it gave me a bit more confidence, like they understood me, type of thing. But yeah, practice, don't be shy, start small. Okay, even let's say you're shy to actually go out in the world and like speak to actual people, find someone that knows the language as well and they can practice with you as well. Other like subliminal, yeah, I think that's how you say it, subliminal lesson teaching thing is, for example, if I'm just like doing stuff around the house, I'm watching something, dishes, whatever, I'll be listening to, let's say, like a German class on like Spotify or whatever. Like, I'm not paying attention to it, but just hearing it, I end up remembering, like, oh yeah, wait, that's how you say auntie, Yeah. So basically number 4 is basically speak it and don't be afraid to actually put it into practice, because this is basically like a list of speaking a language and then gaining confidence. If you've done step number 1, you've color coordinated your verbs, your important vocabulary notes, you know that. If you've done point number 2, you have a separate book, you've learned your verbs, how to conjugate them, you know that. If you've done step number 3, you've done your self-tests, you've passed them, you have more confidence, you passed it and you're like, I know. Now actually go into the real world and do like the ultimate test and you'll be happy. And finally, the 5th, drum roll, not a drum. Anyway, the fifth tip is don't know. It's not a tip, but it's basically it's okay not to know. It's okay to go through a lesson, finish it, and be like, I learned nothing today. Because it's a language. It's not something that's native to you or anything. When you're learning something, you have some things you just don't understand, and that's okay. I still don't speak English properly sometimes. We just experienced me not know how to say subconsciously. I forgot. But we just experienced that, you know, and it's okay not to know, and that's part of the entire process. And actually I found that sometimes when I feel defeated after a class and I don't understand anything, and then later on I kind of go through it on my own in a way that I would understand and I finally get it, I feel a bit more happiness that, oh wow, I have actually learned this, rather than coming out of a lesson feeling like I got this. And that's about it, guys. Those are my tips for learning German or any other language. If you have any other tips for me, please just tell me in the comments and I will put them into practice. And hopefully within a few months I'll be doing this entire channel in German. You'll be using subtitles. English or German. If my German is bad, you'll still be using subtitles. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and yeah, I will see you in the next video. And if you liked this video, you can like it. If you like me, you can subscribe. It's up to you, but that would be really nice. Thank you guys, and see you in the next video.